Welcome to Gen 365 podcast. This is an initiative of Beyond the Veil Mission. And this is a podcast for the community to empower a generation of healing and hope 365 days of the year. Before we begin, I want to remind you the meaning of humanity or Ubuntu. I am because you are. I am because we are. Therefore, to create a safe and brave space for all of us, we must remember that my healing is as good as my community healing. This is a podcast for everyone who loves the community. If you are listening to this new episode, I want you to remember that we see you and you matter. Welcome. Welcome again to Gen 365 podcast. Today, I will be your host. We do not have a guest. Just let's hang out. The conversation today will be around loneliness and holidays. And I just want to respond to some of the questions that we received from our social media. And for Gen 365 podcasts, we're going to be sharing 3 podcasts a month, 2 with a guest, and 1 with myself. It might be with a guest, depending on the circumstances. However, this is specifically to respond to some of the questions from our community, share some of the, response, or maybe have a discussion of some of the trending issues, and actually even share resources that can be helpful to anyone. Stay tuned because I'll be sharing some resources that can help you or your family during these holidays. And yes, let's start our conversation. And before we begin, I would like to shine light to everyone who went through grieving this year. I think December, I have no idea what is with December, but for some reason I feel like, December and November, I start hearing so many losses. So many people died during this month. I don't know, but I remember even when I was, before I moved to Canada, when I was living back home, for some reason, December, even in churches, they were like, start praying. We know December, sometimes people die. I remember I used to hear some of the accidents happening, taking many people. There was actually something about December, and I can even myself recall some of the people that I've lost in this month that were so important to me. Share with us on our social media if is this a myth? Is it something about December? But anyhow, life is both, joy and mourning. I think, there's always, good moment and tough moment. And what can be helpful is recognizing that we have a community, we have families, we have people around us that can help us to go through this. However, sometimes this is not the situation for many people. This is why I want to encourage anyone, because grief can be lonely. And thinking about the concept called defranchised grief, this was was introduced to me in one of the courses that I took this year. As many of you know, I am a student in MDV, Masters of Divinity in Clinical Counseling. And this year, I've taken a few courses in the area of grieving, and this one really transformed me in a way to see grief in a new angle. We discussed about some of the defranchised grief, which mean these are losses that are not recognized by the society, and this can be painful for people who are grieving. If you want to know more, you can read the book by Dr. Kenneth. He discusses a lot about this concept, and some of the examples they provided, or the professor provided, were for example, there is these losses that are not seen as worthy of grief, remember, this is how the society decide who get to grieve and who does not get to grieve. It's like, we go through grieving, and I was actually surprised, and it's actually real, how the society really impact our grieving journey. And in many ways, our society can refuse or block or close a door in how we go through grieving. For example, I'm going to share a few of the examples. There's so many reasons why, but some of the main one was like, for example, when the loss isn't seen as worthy of grief. For example, if a mother or a woman had a miscarriage, for the society, it's like, move on, There was no child or baby out of that pregnancy, like that we can see. So, you can move on. There will be the next one. There's those negative, response to losses, to those type of loss. Another example, when a relationship is stigmatized. For example, if you had a partner in an extramarital affair, sometimes in those situations, actually, people are not even invited to the funeral because somehow it's a taboo to the family. And however, these people are grieving their partners. Another example is when, the mechanism of death is stigmatized. For example, if the loss was, involved suicide or overdose death, it's like, grieve on the side, but don't talk about it. If there is no beautiful way to talk about it, then hide it. The other one can be the person grieving is not recognized as a griever. For example, because when we lose someone, we all have a different relationship with that person. And sometimes the society decides who they recognize as griever. If it's not the closest family member, who are you? But remember, they can be co-workers, ex-partners. They can be other people with many relationships. And especially when we think about, who attend the funeral, who maybe visit the family, who is included in the conversation, the society decides. This conversation is not about just grieving. It's just like, even in our community, the Rwandans living in Canada, over the few weeks and months, we've heard so many losses. And even around us, as a society in Canada, there have been so many losses. And I think this was an important piece to add to this because, when we think about loneliness and holidays, grief really is part of it. And I think another example I can add on this topic is, the way someone is grieving is stigmatized. The example can be the absence of an outward grief response or extreme grief response. It's like, the society decides how you grieve. If you go outside of those standards, either you are not grieving well or you are grieving too much, therefore you have a problem or you have multiple issues. For example, when you see someone at the funeral who lost someone, they're not crying, it might be like, oh my goodness, what happened? Even let's think maybe it was a couple who was divorced and the partner died. People will be measuring the level of how they are grieving or showing sadness to believe that they are grieving their ex-partners. So we have to be careful, and I love that they discussed that. When we think about grieving, it's not even about people. It can be grieving the loss of your job, the loss of your body part through surgery. Think about someone who had the surgery recently. I have a friend of mine who was sharing with me. She had problems with back pain, how she had a conversation with the doctor that she can never be pregnant due to her condition. That comes with grief. And as I was speaking to her, I was, oh my goodness, that must be painful, but I cannot understand that in her way. So there are many, many ways. It can be the loss of your job, the loss of your career, maybe due to an accident. It can be so many reasons that led you to grieving. And I just wanted to encourage you. Grief can be lonely. Grief can come with shame, anger, depression, and all of that, if there is any possible way. And one of the area also is sudden loss, when we did not even see a clue that something can happen. I just want to encourage you, let's move to the conversation, but I think I wanted to spend some time here because, holidays, loneliness, we can talk about that conversation without acknowledging this area of grieving, because it does impact many people. Even hearing from it can be challenging. So the other thing I want to discuss before we continue is, to thank Beyond the Veil Mission team. I am telling you, as you all know, Gen 365 podcast is a podcast by Beyond the Veil Mission. You might hear me often, Lydia, talking about this, but we have an amazing team, amazing people behind this organization, working tirelessly to make sure that we really be in the position to help our community. And I can know, starting with Judith, Shell, Remy, Kaneza, Diane, Krista, who's been working so hard on this podcast. There's so many people in any way. If you've been part of this organization, either, advising, we thank you so much for the contribution you bring and every support. Thank you so much. And I want to thank Kami Consultation. If you don't know who they are and you have an organization, please check them out on social media. Kami is Kame Consultation. They're amazing and team of amazing Black women. Okay. So they're the one really, they help us in many areas. Research, they're the one who continue to help us to build this podcast. They have so many great services to help organizations to grow, and even your business, if you have one, check them out in Toronto. But, we are doing so many things online. They can assist you really from anywhere. Thank you also for Rosemary. Rosemary has been our organization development consultant for a while, and we've been learning so much from her. I just want to say Happy New Year, and also thanking all the Black community organizations and our allies that we partner together or work together, who work tirelessly to improve the well-being of our communities. I will highlight Carrie Toronto. That's if you are, young youth living in, GTA areas, Hamilton. Please join this organization. That's the Canadian Association for Rwandan Youth living in Toronto or greater areas of Toronto or Hamilton. I know that Kerry has at the association in many cities in Canada. So, check them out, on social media. And there's also RCHC. We really partner on different projects. And RCHC, that's Rwanda Canadian Healing Center, led by Kizito. This is an amazing organization that I love because they work so hard to share resources with the community and find ways to continue to help our community, many actually Afro-Black communities, to grow. I will be focused on Rwanda, but we thank you so much for all the contribution you have brought to Beyond the Veil. Umurage is really community impact. Seniors and women in Toronto, we love working with them and the support they bring to our community. RCA, that's Rwandan Canadian Association, Hamilton, Toronto, and across Canada. We thank you so much because we are part of this community and we are so grateful for every support we get from them Tropicana, one of our supporting many areas to grow and to build the capacity of this organization. NAPSI Tropicana has beautiful services, counseling. I'm sharing this information so you can know that there are always resources, especially our community Rwandans living in Canada. It's not a big community, but it's important to know that outside of Rwandan organizations or communities, there are also other Black communities or even our allies available to help us in many ways. There's also NAPSI, the Network for the Advancement of Black Communities, that has been really helping Beyond the Veil in many areas, consultation, growing. Thank you so much. And all these great memories we continue to create together as we build the community we want. Remember, we are building a community we want. If you see something in the community missing, let's stop complaining. Especially, I see many times people, we don't do this in our community. There's this missing, blaming our leaders, or why we don't do this. We are this and that. However, what are you doing to bring a change that you want? If you see an area missing in your community, work so hard so you can add that, because this is a legacy we're living for the next generation. The community we want, we are the one who can build that. And I think there's an important resource that I want to share. Actually, it was shared this week that the government of Canada is offering a one-time top-up to the Canada Housing Benefit. You have to go to the website of the government of Canada to see their services, and they'll be offering $500 to families or individuals. I think one of the criteria is your income has to be under 35,000 K from your 2021 income. And, check this opportunity. $500 is always something useful for families. Been going through a tough year, especially since the pandemic. Even if maybe you don't know how to navigate, the government services online, you can always give them a call so they can really support you. Try to look up on Google, one-time top up to the Canada Housing Benefit Canada. So you must be a resident of Canada. Check criteria. If you are eligible, you can apply for that, and apparently you really receive that as soon as possible. It does not take weeks. So take that opportunity. We are here for this podcast to share some of the resources. Yes. Continuing with our conversation, loneliness and holidays, some of the things I just wanted to touch some of the few points. For example, one of the areas that can impact us, being away from your family. Here, I want to touch to the young people, especially young people starting on their own, especially above 18. Here in Canada, it's a culture when you go to university, then you find a job, then your apartment and all of that. And sometimes, or some of the young people here, they left their family back home to come study here. And not all of them get the opportunity to go back home again to share the holidays with their family. So it can be challenging. One of the things that I can encourage, there are two things. Of course, I will always highlight the idea of the community support. It's important that we try to be part of this community group. And I also want to encourage community leaders. All these groups that we have, please make them active, so that we can increase participation. Because sometimes they're so cold. It's like, a message from here and there. And it's so hard. Because when I think about the community support, I want to see it as a way we have these groups and people can send a message freely to be like, I need support. I have a question. In a way, let's make them more, active. Maybe appoint someone in your committee that can be, though we have these WhatsApp groups, so that they can lead those groups, help people to engage in conversation so they can be freely able to open up. So that can be challenging for young people. And also thinking about, for example, single parent. Sometimes I know how single parent works. These holidays, your kids might be with the other parent, the other one with you. So those can come with challenges. One of the things I can share is, if it's your situation, I encourage you to prepare in advance, not dismissing the idea that it's not going to happen. What can I do to prepare? Can I look, maybe, is there an event that I can attend? Is there maybe a service that can support me through this moment? I can share one of the example myself last year. I went through a marriage separation last year. And December, for the holidays, for Christmas, my kids were going to be away with their dad. That was my first Christmas. That was my first Christmas away from my kids. And I spent weeks preparing for how that was going to look like. And one of the things that I did, first of all, was in the pandemic. There were not many movements. So I was like, how do I prepare for this? And I came up with an idea of having a retreat, because for mothers, we always need, sometimes, we long for silence. And I prepare for that. I staged my house to be like, a retreat home, bought beautiful candles, oil treatment for massage. I think I got a beautiful book that I wanted. And I actually wrote down my schedule, prayer time, meditation time. I really made it those days to be like, I'm going to have a retreat. Because I think I tried to book a retreat area, but because it's the holidays, usually sometimes they're either closed or overbooked. So I was like, let me create one in my house. And I prayed about it. I was like, I'm gonna be alone. I don't know how this is going to hit me. So I want to prepare myself mentally and spiritually so I can really go through this moment with grace. And what happened? I remember actually I got COVID during that time. I actually got sick. And also a good friend of mine also invited me to their family to share Christmas together. That's another thing that can help you. If you have friends, don't limit yourself to just holidays is about family. If you have friends that can welcome you, don't hesitate to join them. And if you know event that you can attend, it can be religious event, it can be just social event. Do not hesitate. Whatever works for you, just, prepare for that, plan for that, so you can go through that with grace. Another thing, I recognize how the genocide against the Tutsi, separated many Rwandan families. For some of us, it takes a lot to reunite with our family. It's like, oh my God, it's like winning. I don't even know how I can describe that feeling. This summer, I was able to reunite with some of my siblings. However, one of them was not available as well. But I remember my brother saying, oh my goodness, because I took my kids back home, and then he was like, oh my God, for the first time, I feel like, I'm feeling what it means to be in the family, what it means to be part of the family. He was always, my siblings were always excited to see the kids, do things with them and all of that. Their house usually, they're single, they have their huge houses, they live alone, but it was loud and all of that. And they were like, oh my God, this was a beautiful experience to experience what it means to be around the family. So, that's a privilege for many of us that the genocide against the Tutsi took from us. So that's something that can impact our holidays. When holidays happen, we cannot forget how, when other people are talking about sitting with their families, their parents, that can also bring up so many tough memories. So, I want to encourage you, don't feel like you are alone. Talk to someone in any way possible. And also reminding you, this conversation might be tough. if you feel in any way not comfortable or challenged, please, you can stop listening to the podcast. In case of an emergency here in Canada, you can call 911, or also in your area where you're listening from, because we know many people across the globe listen to this conversation, the diaspora or Rwanda itself. Please, call your local services that support you in any way, and, just feel comfortable to go in this conversation as it helps you and it suits you. So I think, the other thing our social media people wanted us to discuss is boundaries during the holidays. Boundaries in festive season, about money, time, going out, guests, sometimes it can be overwhelming. It can be too many guests. It can be maybe not enough guests. But here we can discuss many guests. Sometimes family can go with the idea, how do we limit our guests? How many guests are we able to receive this year? That can be a tough conversation, Even spending money. I feel like, in the Western culture, something that I've learned is that all the seasons, all the holidays are about spending money. And until you grow and start to understand the importance of holiday, it's gonna be too much on you. Where we, back home in Rwanda, for us, holidays, especially Christmas was about, we were looking for going to church. Even if people were not Christian, we just go to church because Christmas is about going to church and then have a meal together, a beautiful meal. And if it goes beyond that, it was like, receiving a new clothes, okay? Maybe a new clothes to go to church with or celebrate Christmas. But it wasn't about exchanging gifts with everyone. I am telling you, it can be challenging. But then, when we join new cultures, new communities, we have no choice sometimes other than to blend with the culture and adapt to the new norms and all of that. So even here in Canada, my kids will start talking about gifts maybe September. So switching the conversation to Christmas is not about just receiving. It's about how do we show love and kindness to others. Even on Christmas, I always try to have my kids, we put together a gift for someone else, because I want to send a message. This is not just about you. It's also about remembering other people in need. So, boundaries in festive seasons, for families, it's important to have conversations. How do gifts look like based on maybe on what our family can afford? Because sometimes it can be too much. Gifts for families, siblings, cousins, aunts, and all of that is too much. I know there are some people are privileged to save ahead of time for Christmas shopping, but for many people, it can be tough, especially this time around. Many people are going through many financial challenges. However, I think we have to recognize that, love is how we make people feel, but not what we give to them. Because I can call so many gifts that I've received and never touched my heart, but many words that I've received that touch my heart beyond even material things. So we have to be careful. I've been happy. People can be happy receiving $1, $2 gift. People can be not happy receiving $1,000 gift. So it's all about our actions behind that. And, going out, guests, also we have to be careful and responsible. Be safe out there. There's so many events happening, so many parties. You can involve alcohol, so many things. It's important that we recognize that these celebrations are not defining our entire lives. It's a moment to rejoice, and it's so important, but we have to be mindful of what comes next as well. And yes, I think I will go to last discussion, let's, discuss or answers to some of the questions from social media. Ooh, these questions were something, okay? So one of the question was, because we asked a question about what do you all think about loneliness and holidays? And one of the question was what do you do when you miss your ex? Ooh. I was like, this is an interesting question. I think on a few notes, what I can share is that when you miss your ex first, it's important to reflect on why you ended that relationship, because there is a strong reason why that relationship you decided to end it. And also recognize that you might be going through something, especially the holidays, some people might be. I think I read something on social media. Be careful when someone comes to date you around holidays. It might be just to show off and that's it. Or maybe be able to bring someone to events because, there is that pressure from the society. So it's important to see, are you maybe going through something and you feel some emptiness and you need someone to fill that? And you are looking maybe to avoid those feelings. And also, I think I shared that it's okay to miss someone you once had a relationship with. Because when we end a relationship with our ex, it does not mean that all the memories were just bad memories. People have different reasons why they end relationship. It can be not being compatible and all of that. I don't think it's a problem to miss someone that you once had a relationship with. However, a reflection why everything ended and how if you engage yourself again that situation, what can be the outcome that can help you really to navigate that. The other question was the pressure to date only in your culture while living abroad. I think this is a very big challenge. I hear many people, we live in a diverse society in Canada, many, many cultures. It's actually Canada called a multicultural society. It can be challenging. I hear, especially from the Rwandan, I speak from the community that I know well. I see many people living there for many years. When they decide to marry, they fly back home to get someone. And I've seen actually many times we end up with challenges because now they have a gap in their mind, in their mindset, and it becomes so difficult as the other person is trying to integrate in this new society. It can be a challenge. And when you talk with people, they're like, why can't you look around in other cultures? And I understand because, dating with someone not from your culture, it's no, many people, especially young people, speak English. That's good. However, there's so many things. I think once someone on social media was saying, imagine marrying someone and you have to explain to them that people come to visit you without asking for appointment. In Rwanda, when I need to come to visit you, I need to call you and ask you for an appointment. I will just show up. Things have changed because we have cell phones now, but usually you would just wake up to a call from your auntie or uncle from the village telling you, oh, I'm in your city, I'm coming to visit you. And you are not going to do anything about it. And they can be, oh, I'm going to stay for 2 weeks. For us, that's a normal thing. And people can be like, how am I going to explain that? How am I going to explain when a family member asks me for help financially? I support them without asking many things. So those are things in every culture. We have those things we do, and we have a way we communicate with that and we understand. So cultural differences can be a huge, huge issue and understand. However, we have also seen a beautiful union coming from different cultures. And I think we have to be open. You never know where your blessing can come from. I've seen many successful relationship from different cultures. So I think what matters, it's important to recognize that someone they're supporting or they're aligning with your purpose, and at the same time, are they willing to really try to learn and understand cultural differences? Because something that I do not like is when people are coming together from different cultures and one want the other one to really join and blend with their culture, while they are trying to discourage the other one from continuing their cultural traditions or practices. We see that often, especially when kids are involved. It can be religion, it can be traditions, and we see that what being encouraged is one side of the culture. So I think it requires maturity, it requires wisdom, it requires preparation. This is where I encourage pre-wedding counseling. Honestly, this is not about religion. This is about churches. This is not about anything. If you're about to marry someone and you have, I don't even say you have all means, because if you can plan a wedding of thousands of dollars, you can put on side at least few dollars for pre-wedding counseling or therapy, because there's so much to discuss there. There's so much your counsel therapists can help you to address, starting from finances. It can be sexuality, it can be so many things you can explore, pregnancy, children, family blending, all those things. So, it's a challenge, but I think it's doable as well. So there's always, and also allowing really the nature guide you to your person, because we never know. The other thing someone said is about social anxiety and holidays. I think we touched base on this on social media as well. Yes, some people can experience social anxiety through holidays. And one of the tips that I can share is you can try to make a list of people or areas that make you more comfortable. And also, one thing that can help you to explore the social anxiety is try to understand the root of your social anxiety through therapy. If you have the opportunity, please do that, so you can be able to learn some stress reduction skills that will be helping you in case you have an obligation to be part of, not even an obligation, because people with social anxiety, it's not that they don't like to be part of social event, but they have a challenge that prevent them to be part of, those events. So trying to address this, trying to recognize the root cause of your social anxiety can help you a lot. And I think there are other tips they share. Try not to drink caffeine or alcohol, because those are the things that can accelerate the anxiety symptoms as well. So, yeah, I think that's it for this conversation. Did I forget anything? Did I not address anything? There's so much we can talk about loneliness and holidays. And yes, we can continue this conversation on social media. We will see you again in January, starting with another other conversation from Gen 365. Thank you, everyone, for a great year, for every support you showed or gave to Beyond the Veil Mission. We do appreciate a lot. We look forward to continuing supporting our community, and we cannot wait to hear from you. We cannot wait to grow with you. Share this with your friends and your family. Thank you so much. This was your host, Lydia. Thank you. This is Gen 365. Bye. And Happy New Year. Merry Christmas. Happy holidays. We wish you the most peaceful, if I say peaceful, the most peaceful holiday seasons. Thank you. That's it for the week. We hope you gathered your dose of resilience for the week ahead. Follow Gen 365 podcast to know when the next episode comes up on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Podbean, or Google Podcasts. Share with your friends, community, and family, and do not also forget to follow and share feedback or questions on our community organization social media at Beyond the Veil Mission on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, and LinkedIn. Or learn more about our work via our website at www.beyondtheveilmission.com. In the spirit of building resourceful, stronger communities, we can also help your community or business or organization to share your news and event on our podcast. Please email us for collaboration at podcastgen365@gmail.com. Thank you. Bye.